On February 23, 2012, a user named Mr. Arroyo makes a post on the Minecraft forums. It is entitled Exclusive, Secret File in Assets.minecraft.net. According to the post, Mr. Arroyo was poking around on a certain section of the Minecraft website when he stumbled upon a mysterious file named tominecon.7z. This file is a 7-zip archive designed to compress and store multiple documents in a single container. But this particular archive is password protected. The contents are encrypted and thus inaccessible. With no way to open the file himself, Mr. Arroyo turns to the community for assistance, hoping someone could unlock this file. No one knows it right now, but this post is the entrance to a rabbit hole, the world's introduction to a Minecraft mystery that will last over a decade. This seemingly simple discovery will prove to be far more mysterious than it initially seems. Let's dive deeper into Mr. Arroyo's post. He accesses a section of the Minecraft website called assets.minecraft.net. Originally, this is the place where Minecraft's updates were stored. Although it's now inaccessible to the public, an archived version is available. Let's explore it a bit. The homepage is incoherent and confusing. It's difficult to pull anything useful from it. However, examining the source code reveals a link to a file called saved resource. It is an XML file and it's much easier to navigate. The file indicates that assets.minecraft.net is connected to an Amazon Web Services simple storage service bucket. Essentially, this is just a place to store files. The saved resources text provides a comprehensive list of all the files and folders in the bucket, complete with useful attributes for each item. For instance, the key attribute describes the file's name and retrieval path. To access, say, rc2/minecraft.jar, we just have to go to assets.minecraft.net/rc2/minecraft.jar. The size attribute shows how big the file is in bytes, and the owner tag says who uploaded the file. In this case, we can see that this Minecraft version was uploaded by Jens Bergensten, also known as Jeb. Another critical detail is the last modified attribute, which indicates the date and time when the file was uploaded to the bucket. The timestamps end with the Z character. This represents a time zone of ±0, also known as Coordinated Universal Time. For the duration of this video, all timestamps will be in this time zone. While this bucket primarily contains versions of Minecraft, there are some extra things, such as fonts and website assets. Remember SOPA? It also contains promotional material, icons, XML files, and whatever this is. But out of all these files, none are quite as strange as tominecon.7z. Tucked away at the very end of the list, it's the largest file in the bucket, and it's the only one that's encrypted. Curiously, there is no owner attribute. We have no idea who created this file. The name suggests that this is, well, tominecon. November 8th, 2011 was the first day of Minecon 2011, a Minecraft convention held in Las Vegas. It included speakers, panels, merchandise, game demos, and the official release of Minecraft 1.0. The timestamp of tominecon is November 15th, 2011 at 10:23 a.m., 3 days before the convention. But if this file actually was some asset for the show, then why was it uploaded on a publicly accessible website? The multitude of oddities surrounding this file is what prompts Mr. Arroyo to make his forum post. Despite some interest, there's not much traction towards solving the mystery. After a few months of scattered responses, the investigation goes cold. However, on June 2nd, 2012, exactly 100 days after Mr. Arroyo's post, the mystery pops up again on a different website called Hack Forums. A new user has started the thread, asking the community for help with cracking the file. As Hack Forums is a computer enthusiast website, there are no shortage of people willing to make an attempt. And it is here that the tominecon.7z investigation is revitalized. Most attempts to open the file involved brute force. This is a method that tries as many password combinations as possible with the hopes of finding one that works. Unfortunately for the hackers, however, the 7z file format is specifically designed to be resistant to brute force attacks. Let me explain why. A 7-zip file is encrypted using a scheme called AES-256. I'll spare you the details, but essentially to open an encrypted file, a 256-bit key is required. However, not all passwords are 256 bits, so what happens if the password is a different length? To solve this issue, the 7-zip archiver uses something called a hash function. This is a special type of algorithm that takes an arbitrary amount of input data and results in a fixed output. For example, if I enter the password sub2rgn, the hash is the following string. But if I enter a longer password, say sub2rgn and like the video, the hash output is the same length. This is how the archiver converts a password into the encryption key. It doesn't matter how long your password is, the hash function gets it down to the right length. But there's a twist. Instead of hashing the password once, it hashes it over 500,000 times. If you know the password to an encrypted file, these 500,000 hashes are no big deal, going by quickly. But if you don't know the password, each password you check has to go through the 500,000 hashes every single time. This means that a brute force attack of attempting millions of passwords is slowed substantially, making it extremely challenging to find the password using this method. This was the dilemma that the users on Hack Forum faced as they attempted to open the file. Yet they attempted anyways, with several people cranking out possibilities on their computers. There's even mention of a Twitter user named Simba1 who started brute force attempts 2 days earlier, but the original tweets have been lost to time. In an unfortunate development, the same fate befell a portion of the Hack Forum's responses. From June 4th at 6 AM to June 5th at 7:44 AM, there are no saved pages on archive.org. This represents 60 messages from that time frame that are no longer accessible. However, we can use context clues in the remaining messages to glean some information. Apparently, during this 26-hour gap, a user named Arcus managed to crack the password. It's mentioned by a user named FlippyBits on June 5th at 2:11 PM.
Arcus cracked it. I can vouch, he showed me some stuff over TeamViewer, but it does have serious vital information that would be very bad if it was leaked. This needs to be removed immediately. It's probably too late considering there's probably others with the password by now, but if the wrong people get a hold of this information, it will quite literally go down.
This is quite the foreboding message. Apparently, whatever's in this archive is a big deal. It's so important that FlippyBits says it needs to be removed immediately. A few responses later, we find another nugget of information.
He made a big mistake by telling you guys it's only numbers for the password. I suggest if anyone gets the password to just look and leave it alone. Don't tell anyone, just keep it to yourself.
This tells us that, although Arcus did not reveal the password outright, he nonetheless provided some information about it, namely that it only contains numbers. We can discover more clues about the missing messages by returning to the Minecraft forum post, which has started to see an increase in activity. A user named Palaxco corroborates FlippyBits' claim that the file contains vital information. Then, a few messages later, another detail about the password. Buildmaster says that it is 16 characters long. This is the only place that I can find this piece of information, which suggests that Buildmaster took it from the missing Hack Forums pages. And with that, we now know two key elements of the password, that it's 16 digits and that it is only numbers. However, despite this information, there has still not yet been any concrete proof that tominecon has been opened. Arcus insists that he's done it, but offers no verification. On June 8th, a different user posts a WinRAR image showing a text file called Players with Capes, but once again, there's no proof given. After about 10 days, the discussion begins to dwindle on Hack Forums. However, it continues intermittently on the Minecraft forum. But just a few weeks later, a new development occurs. On August 8th, 2012, a user named RyanTech posts a link to a tweet that he sent.
Notch, I have a team of evil people ready to break the 7Z file.
This was sent at 11:37 AM. A mere 3 minutes later, Notch himself has posted a response.
RyanTech, it's just the 1.0 release of Minecraft.
Concluding with a smiley face emoticon. Well, case closed, right? Notch, the creator of Minecraft, says it's just the 1.0 release of the game. But as it turns out, something really interesting just happened, and it's something you would only know about if you happen to check assets.minecraft.net. When we do that, we once again see the XML file with a list of objects. Scrolling down to the bottom, we still see tominecon.7z. But something has changed. The last modified attribute should be November 15th, 2011. Instead, it says August 8th, 2012 at 10:56 AM. This is even more notable when we take a look at the etag attribute, which stands for entity tag. Remember the hash function, which takes arbitrary data and produces a fixed output? Well, that data doesn't have to be a password, it could be a file as well. And that's what the etag is, an MD5 hash of the given file. Thus, each bucket object has a unique identifier. If the file were to change, the MD5 hash and the etag would also change. Comparing the etag here with the one we saw previously, we'll see that they are different. The August 8th version of tominecon.7z is not the same as the original. It's been swapped out for a decoy. They've subtly replaced it with a completely different file. The timing of this is beyond bizarre. By this point, discussion on tominecon had pretty much died down. There were no more Hack Forum posts and only occasional Minecraft forum posts. For reasons unclear, someone at Mojang suddenly decided to swap tominecon.7z with a different version. Not even 2 hours later, Notch responds to a question on Twitter, confirming the existence of the file. The fact that Notch even knows what this tweet is about is notable. Without proper context, the 7z file is vague. Not to mention that Minecon 2011 was over 9 months ago. Why would Notch immediately recognize what this tweet is referencing? And yet he does, providing a virtually instantaneous explanation. Perhaps this suggests that it was Notch who made the swap. With the file on his mind, he'd be able to respond quickly. But the reason for the initial swap remains shrouded. If tominecon really did just contain Minecraft 1.0, then why bother swapping at all? And if it contained something else, why would Notch publicly comment on the existence of the file, instead of letting it fade into obscurity? And it's still super weird that the swap occurred just 2 hours before the first public acknowledgement of the file by a Mojang employee. Is it possible that there was a third event, one which caused both Mojang to swap the file and Ryan to make the tweet? The entire sequence is mystifying. So now there are 2 versions of tominecon.7z, the original version and the swapped version. And with the subtle way that the swap was executed, how would anyone even know it happened? 1 month later, on September 8th, a user actually does notice that there's a change in the XML file, saying that it has been updated. But no one acknowledges this discovery. The investigators fail to understand just how big of a deal it is that this file is changed. The Minecraft forum post sees limited engagement through early 2013, but by mid-April the conversation is ceased, and the investigation on tominecon.7z enters a dark age. The trail goes cold for nearly 5 years, interrupted once in 2016 by another Notch tweet saying that the file contains a Minecraft build. For the most part, the mystery of tominecon.7z has been forgotten. The investigative community didn't even get a chance to appreciate the fact that the files had been swapped. But within a certain community, a glimmer of hope remained. omniarchive.uk is a website with the stated goal of preserving all official Minecraft content. Discussion of tominecon would pop up occasionally on their Discord server. On February 5th, 2018, a user named NapsterDude briefly mentioned that there may be 2 versions of the file, an indication that this key fact has not been completely forgotten. Over a year later, a user named amine is exploring old archives of assets.minecraft.net when they suddenly notice the encrypted tominecon file. They mention that they're sure people have gotten into the file already, but someone responds saying that they haven't. amine decides to investigate further. They tweet Tobias Malmstom, a developer who was with Mojang from 2010 to 2014. Tobias actually responds, although it's not exactly helpful.
Brute force it.
amine doesn't give up though. They send an email to Jeb of all people, and assuming this screenshot is legit, Jeb responds. He says,
"Hello Alex, I did some digging and I found this quote from Tobias. The file itself contains the 1.0 version of Minecraft, so nothing sensitive, albeit nostalgic. The file has been replaced with a bogus one with a bogus password to entertain the world. So there you have it. Hope you were entertained."
This is meaningful because it serves as an official confirmation that the files had been swapped, with the apparent purpose of entertaining the world. But unfortunately, not much came of it. The trail went cold once again. On March 18, 2019, a user named Lackey asks Dinnerbone if he knows the password for tominecon. Dinnerbone is the username of Nathan Adams, an ex-Mojang developer. They're actually in the OmniArchive Discord server, and they respond with,
"It does not contain anything useful to you, Lackey. What do you think it contains?"
Nathan Adams was not hired by Mojang until February 28, 2012. This means that he would not have been present for the creation of the original file. However, he would have been at Mojang during the swap, which occurred during his first year. The investigation, once again, grinds to a halt. But suddenly, on May 3rd, 2022, a breakthrough. A Discord user named Danny Dorito posts a message saying they've cracked the password. Danny doesn't reveal what the password is, but he does show what was in the file. At long last, we'll get to see what exists in this mysterious archive. Join me for a cinematic viewing.
Kids get the best of it with WDCA Channel 20 in Washington, D.C.
Think twice before you answer. Think twice.
Think twice.
Before you say yes.
Think twice before you answer. Think twice before you say yes.
Huh? What are we looking at? Well, this is a comedy sketch by a man named Petey Green, who was a talk show host in Washington, D.C. His story is actually pretty fascinating. He joined the U.S. Army at the age of 16, serving for about 6 years. Several years after being discharged, he was convicted of armed robbery and sentenced to a decade in prison. While he was there, he became the prison disc jockey. His social skills were so good that he even saved the life of an inmate by convincing him not to jump to his death. Once PD was released in 1966, he was hired at the AM radio station WOL-AM 1450, putting his DJ skills to use. By 1976, he had his own television show, PD Green's Washington. He used this as a platform to discuss difficult issues such as poverty, racism, domestic violence, and income inequality. The video in tominecon.7z is a segment from the show entitled Be Yourself. But while all of this is interesting, it has nothing to do with Minecraft. And that's because, as you've probably already guessed by now, this is the decoy file, not the original. We're seeing the archive that was swapped out in August of 2012. This is what was intended to entertain the world, in the words of Tobias Malmstrom. About a year later, a YouTuber named MCBYT releases a video covering the topic. It's a great piece of content that gave me a solid starting place for my research. Seriously, go subscribe to the channel right now. The video describes the overall story of tominecon, bringing more attention to what had otherwise been a fairly obscure topic. A Reddit user named NoBackground5031 watches the video and attempts to decode the file. 8 days later, they've done it, publicly revealing for the first time the password.
The spice must flow.
This is a quote from the Dune movie. No, not that one. No, not that one either. It's actually the 1984 David Lynch version. Using this password, we can finally decrypt the archive ourselves. This reveals the video called secret.mp4 and another file called data with no extension. It's not clear what type of file this is supposed to be. I used a tool called TRID to see if I could identify it, but nothing came up. It's probably just garbage data designed to increase the file size, although we don't know for sure. But the story is about to take yet another twist. A couple of days later, a different user comments on the Reddit post with an intriguing message.
I think I may have the original copy of this file. I recently saw MCBYT's video about this, and I decided on a whim to look through my backups to see if I had a copy. And sure enough, I did. It's certainly different than the version shown in the video, the decoy version. I did confirm that this "the spice must flow" password does not open it. Also tried against the same word list with no luck. The link to my file is here.
Below is a link to a file called tominecon.7z. Could this be the long-lost original archive? How do we know if this was real or just a troll? Well, let's think back to the very first Minecraft forum post where the user looked at data in the assets.minecraft.net XML file. The user copied some of the metadata corresponding to the file, which is corroborated by the archived version. Critically, this includes the E tag. Remember, the entity tag is unique to the specific file. If the file changes, then the E tag also changes. So if we can find a way to determine the E tag of the Redditor's file, we can check it against the archived E tag to see if it's the same. I pulled up the terminal and wrote the command to calculate the MD5 hash of the Redditor's file. Oh, it's different. So maybe this actually is a fake file. But before giving up, I decided to do a little bit more research into how the E tag works. And I discovered that the tag is not always the MD5 hash of the file. In certain situations, such as a multi-part upload, the E tag is calculated using a different formula, one which concatenates multiple hashes together. A Redditor on a different subreddit had a similar thought process to mine. A commenter named Aardvark1200 knew of a bash script called S3MD5 that could be used to reverse engineer the E tag of a local file. I downloaded the script and, with bated breath, typed out the command to find the E tag of the Redditor's tominecon.7z. This is it. This is the original tominecon.7z beyond a reasonable doubt. It was stored on some random person's computer, hidden for a decade, only just now seeing the light of day. It's the critical piece of an unsolved Minecraft mystery that has endured for over 10 years. The tominecon.7z file has been unearthed. But even now, the mystery still isn't really solved. Instead, we've crawled just a little bit deeper into what has turned out to be a fascinating rabbit hole. And now that we've explored the story up to this point, there are some inconsistencies we need to discuss. One question that's been bothering me this whole time is who swapped the files, and why. I find it interesting that Notch discussed this 7z file on Twitter mere hours after the swap had occurred. Why did he choose to comment on it at that point? Was it just a coincidence, or was there something else going on? The Twitter exchange from 2016 may prove useful. A user named Lukavon sent the tweet.
Notch, What's that file tominecon.7z on the assets.minecraft.net server from August 8th, 2012? How do we open it? Lukavon, it's a build of Minecraft that we were showing at Minecon. It's a password compressed file. I don't remember the password.
But there's actually something rather strange here. Lukavon is asking about the file from August 8th, 2012, which is the decoy file. However, Notch responds by saying that it was a build of Minecraft. For the decoy file, this is objectively false. We now know that it contains a video. So if Notch did, in fact, swap the file, this would be a lie. But there's really no reason for Notch to be dishonest, especially not in response to a random question on Twitter. This suggests an alternative explanation, that the file had been swapped without Notch's knowledge. I'm not going to claim to understand the deeper implications of this, and maybe there are none. Maybe it's as simple as Tobias replacing the file and forgetting to tell Notch. But the fact that the swap occurred mere hours before Notch's first public acknowledgement of the file's existence is something that feels just a bit, I don't know, too coincidental. I'm not trying to make up some crazy theory, but this is a part of the story that lives like a thorn in my mind. I can't shake the feeling that maybe they're related. Let's switch gears for a bit and think about what actually could be in the original archive. There are 5 known instances of current or former Mojang employees discussing tominecon. We have Notch's 2012 tweet stating that it's the 1.0 release of Minecraft, as well as his 2016 tweet that we just discussed. Then there are the interactions with Amine, when Tobias says to brute force it, and Jeb quotes Tobias, who said that it contained the 1.0 version of Minecraft, which was swapped. Finally, there's Dinnerbone's Discord message saying that it does not contain anything useful. Consistently, the current and former Mojang employees say that this was the 1.0 version of Minecraft. None have mentioned anything suggesting otherwise. But there is evidence that calls this into some doubt. When fully uncompressed, Minecraft version 1.0.0 takes about 50 megabytes of space. Compressing this using 7-zip gets it down to around 44 megabytes. That leaves about 30 megabytes of difference between the Minecraft 1.0 files and the size of tominecon.7z. There would probably be extra things like a sample world, but that would be unlikely to take up the remaining difference. So despite the comments by the Mojang employees, the file size suggests that it may contain information beyond just Minecraft 1.0. So let's broaden our search a little bit. I went through and watched a bunch of Minecon 2011 footage, looking for anything that might match the file. There are several moments where a short video clip is played for the audience, but they're all too long to reasonably fit into a 70 megabyte file. Then I looked at what games were demoed at the convention. There was a live demo of Scrolls, remember that, as well as Cobalt. Unfortunately though, I was unable to find an old enough version of these games to compare the file sizes. But for what was shown in the demos, 70 megabytes naively seems like it could match. One demo it is unlikely to be is Minecraft Pocket Edition. The game was so bare bones that the APK at the time was a mere 1.6 megabytes, far too small. As I continued watching Minecon videos, a thought crossed my mind. What if this contains the demo for the Xbox 360 version? The game shown at Minecon was version 1.66.0016.0, but there's no available archive of it. The first unmodified version available is version 35. The files are about 65 megabytes compressed and 68 megabytes uncompressed. This is much closer to the tominecon.7z size, and this leads me to believe that perhaps this is what is contained in the archive. At this early stage of development, a couple of megabytes of variation between versions wouldn't be strange. This interpretation also provides a potential explanation as to why Mojang would want to swap out the file. This was an incomplete game running on a demo console, not a full release. The build very well could have had proprietary Xbox 360 development tools on it, software which would need to be licensed from Microsoft in order to use. It could have included sensitive information, such as a license key or even the source code itself. If this was the case, there would be good reason for Mojang to want to keep it away from the public. A violation could potentially have legal ramifications. This theory would explain the encryption and the swap, but it wouldn't explain why it was uploaded in the first place. If it actually is proprietary data, why would Mojang even take the risk of putting it on a publicly accessible site? Was it just a hasty backup plan? To be honest, I'm not sure I have a great explanation. Another issue with this theory is that it does conflict with the Mojang employee's insistence that this file is Minecraft 1.0. Another theory I've seen about the reason for the swap is that maybe the contents of the file aren't sensitive, but the password itself is. Perhaps that password was used on other encrypted files beyond just tominecon. If that's the case, then a leak could represent a potential security breach elsewhere. Or maybe it's something I haven't even considered. Let me know what you think in the comments. There are a lot of weird things that don't quite add up, small details that are just so bothersome to me. It's almost as though there's some piece of evidence, some key insight that I'm missing, but I don't know what. I want to conclude with yet another oddity in this ever-deepening mystery. Back in 2012, when users were examining the original archive, there were a few people who claimed to have cracked the password. Recall that there was a user on the Minecraft forum who said that the password was 16 characters long. While they didn't provide a source, it seems likely they got this from the hack forum messages that were not archived. However, since no one was ever able to show proof of decoding the password, there was no way to confirm the legitimacy of this information. And yet, when the Reddit user attempted to decode the decoy, they used the fact that the password was 16 characters. If we look at "the spice must flow," we see that it matches exactly. And this leads to a captivating question. If no one was able to decode the original file, then how could a very specific piece of information about the password ultimately end up being crucial to the decryption of the decoy? Is it possible that someone, somewhere, actually did decrypt this file? Thank you so much for watching. This mystery ended up being far more interesting than I could have imagined, and I'm glad you got to join me on this journey. If you enjoyed this as much as I did, feel free to subscribe, it helps me out a lot. Also, for those who are interested in supporting me further, you can join the Deep Diver channel membership. I want to mention that while I don't know what's on tominecon.7z, I do know that Mojang swapped it for a reason. They clearly decided that this was not something they wanted decoded, and I think this is worth keeping in mind if you choose to attempt to crack the file. We will go ahead and end with that. This has been RGN. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Have a great day.